You are listening to Talk Pretty Real Estate with your host, Beth Pretty. Beth has over 15 years of experience helping people with their real estate needs, and she understands that real estate is more than just selling and listing homes. It's about opening doors and changing lives. And now your host, Beth Pretty.
Hey, welcome listeners. Thanks again for tuning in. This is episode number 2. So thank you for joining us and coming back. And I'm super excited about our guests today. So, one of the processes when purchasing a home or even when you're listing a home is to consider inspection. So I could think of no one other than my friends and preferred inspection vendors. Jennifer, sorry. I'm using Jen.
I did Jen too.
Yeah. So Jennifer McMurdy and Ray McMurdy, they're the owners of Capital Home Inspections, and they graciously have offered to join us today to give us some insight about inspection. And so you guys, if you could start out by just telling us a little bit about inspection. Why inspection?
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
fun.
Thank you for being part of it.
On your second podcast. Exciting.
Yes.
So why inspections? Inspections are an important part of the transaction, and it's just a way to really get to know the home as you're kind of going through that transaction and get to know what might be wrong with it, what things you might need to look out for, and then also just what you would continue to love about it as well.
So tell us what a home inspection is and what a home inspection is not.
Home inspection really is a chance for the potential buyer to get a good look at the house, understand if this is the house that's right for them, and to get familiar with it, learn some things about it, because when you first come to a house and you look at it at the initial time that you see it, it's a lot different than the set of eyes that you look at it later on when you're going to be doing the inspection.
Right. So I always say, when you first walk through the house, that's emotion, that it's eye candy. Mm-hmm. And then the inspection is kind of like Wizard of Oz. Don't look behind the curtain. That we pull back the curtain, and that's the time to really look at the bones. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, it's really an opportunity to see, what structural, mechanical, and safety defects exist within the property. So that's what an inspection is. What it's not.
Yes. We probably can talk more about what it's not.
Talk a lot about what it's not.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
It's not a code inspection. So home inspectors are not code inspectors. They're not allowed to quote code.
What's a code inspector?
So a code inspector, all counties and cities have to have inspectors that, I guess, just report to code.
Yeah, when a house is being constructed, there's certain codes based on the state standards, and there's other international code councils that you have to build a house to, depending on where it's located. There's certain codes that they have to follow. So you'll have your local code official that'll come and take a look at it. And so home inspectors in the state of Virginia are not allowed to quote code or specify code. There are some things that cross over that we look at, and of course we do understand the code, but it's something that's outside of the scope of what we're supposed to discuss.
So getting back to what is an inspection not, or what is not an inspection, is it homeowner's insurance?
It's not. And it's not a warranty.
Mm-hmm.
There's no guarantee of what's going to happen with the home.
Wait a minute. So I'm the buyer, and I pay you money to inspect, but it's not a warranty or guarantee.
Correct.
So talk more about that.
So the only thing that we can guarantee is that something's going to happen to that house.
Yeah. Well, and you can guarantee on that day, at that moment, when you looked at that component or took that photo, that's what it was.
So an inspection that's what it is. It's a snapshot in time.
In time, yeah.
So we're able to see what is, readily available and visible at the time of the inspection. So if there are area rugs down, we are not moving those area rugs. If there are items within a closet or underneath a kitchen sink, we're not moving personal items. So we can only see what's visible and what's available.
And why don't you do that? Why don't you, when you show up and they have an elliptical machine in front of the electrical panel, why don't you move it to get to that component? Tell us about your
The main reason why we don't move that is because you want to be respectful of the person who owns the house and their personal belongings. And it's not yours. Don't touch it. Also, to avoid anything happening that could break something or scratch the floor. It's just that you want to be respectful and not take any chances with anything.
Well, and you're essentially covering your butt. I mean, if you moved something and you scratched the floor or broke something, then the seller is upset with you. So, it's a balance.
It's also just about staying in your lane. It's not our responsibility to have the house ready for inspection. It's the responsibility
right?
of
the seller. Come on.
The seller and the listing agent to prepare their seller to be ready for the inspection. So,
What happens if they want to hide something, though? I mean, that's
it happens.
Yeah.
That does happen.
The area rug is the great example,
Man.
right?
It happens.
So,
I never knew that.
Here's a tip. When you're looking at a house, if you love it, always lift the corners of the area rugs to get a good look underneath, because you don't know what's lurking. And, most of the time, to be fair, listing agents don't know what their sellers are hiding either. So,
Correct.
So you want to be thorough. All
It's
right.
also a good idea, too, when you go to, get your key that day when you're closing and you kind of view the house for the last time, is to be, really aware if there's, any furniture or pictures left in the house, items in the closets or rugs down, make sure you take a really good look, because there has been instances where things are left that can cover up things.
Now, there's certain things you guys don't inspect. So can you kind of give us an idea of what some in the industry standard? Because again, we're in the Richmond market. However, I want to make sure we get some information that would cover you no matter where you are. So industry standard wise, what are some of the things that you're not going to inspect?
Typically, the home inspection is not going to cover things like pests, WDI, wood-destroying insects. It's not going to, look for, covering molds, any type of fungi growth. Also, underground tanks, something
Oil, like an underground oil tank. Yep.
Things like that. Now, that's not to say that we don't know about those things and we don't look out for those things, but you kind of have to be careful when you describe those things in the report.
So it's more of a heads up, this might exist, or there might be fungal growth, because you're not certified mold inspectors, correct? So you're not going to say this house has mold.
Exactly.
You're going to say suspected.
Possible fungi growth.
Possible fungi growth.
Yes,
possible wood-destroying insect growth. It's kind of like the home inspector is your general practitioner, your doctor.
Right. Well, yeah, I like that.
You know a little bit about a lot of different things, but you're not necessarily a specialist. You're not a pulmonologist or a cardiologist,
And other things that are important to know that aren't within a home inspection are pools and spas, unless you hire a pool or spa inspector. Fireplace, chimney inspections is something that's important. Irrigation systems, those are things that are not part of or within the scope of a home inspection.
Septic and well.
Correct.
Gonna have somebody separate for those things, right?
So there are a lot of
fences?
so fences.
Fences, we do not. They aren't part of the typical inspection. Again, it's one of those things that we look at and, we'll discuss, but it's not something that's necessarily covered.
It's really the way things affect a house. So sometimes you might have like a retaining wall, and if a retaining wall affects like the structural integrity of a house, then that could be something that
if it's a retaining wall that's connected to the house, that's viewed differently as a retaining wall that's, outside, not connected
in the yard, holding up ground. Yeah.
But for instance, I'll give a kind of an example with the fence. There was an inspection that I had recently where the house was on a hill and the house dropped off, and they had a fence installed. The way the fence was installed, there were gaps that were larger than 4 inches, which is typically how they judge whether or not a young child could fit through. Well, even though the fence isn't part of the home inspection because they had a young toddler, I felt that it was, my duty and in their best interest to tell them this fence has some larger gaps, and that's something that you might want to consider because I see that you have, young children. So a lot of it, I think, is really just kind of using your own personal experience and making sure you have your client's best interest at heart, regardless if it's something you're specifically supposed to look at. You just kind of have to be delicate in the way you describe things.
All right, so I have all these questions now popping in my head. So because you shared a story, now I'm going to have to ask. Okay, what is the I'm going to ask a couple different.
I was going to ask a couple of these things. Yeah.
What is the scariest thing you've ever seen in a house? Like you're like, holy crap.
I've had a possum chase me across a roof one time. That was kind of scary.
That's scary to me too.
You know, 'cause you're on a roof, so that can kind of be scary
Yeah.
itself. And I was making my way over to the chimney, and the house had wood siding, but the possum, of course, didn't like me being there. Maybe it had a nest or babies. I'm guessing it had babies. And it started to chase me across the roof, which was a little scary.
No dead bodies up there?
I've not ever seen any dead bodies. No.
What's like the most egregious defect you've ever seen where you thought, oh my gosh, this is really bad? Because I can think of one that you did for one of my houses. So if you don't have a story, I have a story. So
One of the funniest ones, or kind of the ones that make you scratch your head, I always think of, there was a leak in a roof in the attic, and the person had somehow managed to pull up one of these like blue kiddie pools into the attic, and then had connected a pipe to catch the leak and then drain it out the side of the house. So I just thought the amount of time to pull that.
Was it a MacGyver house?
Why not just get the roofer out and do
and
the
it was something
$200
simple,
repair?
like flashing, that I think it took more time and energy to do the pool up there, the little kiddie pool, which but
Well, you did. So this will be a good segue to another question I want to ask. So you did a new construction inspection for me recently, and we're not mentioning builders or anything like that. But the air handler in the attic was not vented out, like it wasn't connected to the exhaust vent out of the
I believe that was
ceiling.
the furnace that was in the attic. Yes.
Which I'm a lay person, but how I understand that is there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of carbon monoxide filling the attic, seeping into the house.
How'd they miss that?
Well, okay, so that brings me to the great segue, because I get told all the time by buyers, well, I don't need to do an inspection because the county's doing the inspections. And I always say, look, the county inspectors, they have a little list that they just check off, and they're not looking for everything that an inspector would. Sometimes the inspectors don't even get out of the car except to turn in what they have already filled out. They actually haven't necessarily looked at the item that they're there to check. So I always recommend inspection for new construction, which I'd like you guys to talk a little bit about. But there's an example. I mean, that is something that could have killed the family potentially.
Absolutely.
It's one of the most scariest things I've ever seen in new construction inspection. I have numerous examples of, and I think the most common thing I've seen is where they forgot to put insulation in the crawl space. I see that all the time with new construction. So, well, I have you here to talk about, not me. So anyway, I could go off on a tangent on that, but can you talk a little bit about new construction and why you should do an inspection, as well as what are the different stages of the process where you could have inspection done?
I mean, when you buy a new house, you want it to be perfect. It's brand new, and there are a lot of people that go into buying that. With the builder, the subcontractors, and as you mentioned, the local code inspectors, everyone's being pushed, and they're under a lot of stress, and they're always being rushed to get through it. And so you want someone independent that hasn't really been at the house every day and hasn't gotten accustomed to seeing the same thing over and over again, just a fresh set of eyes. And so having someone that's going to be there for 3 or 4 hours with a fresh set of eyes is very important. While we do look at a lot of the same things, there's also a difference in the things that we look at for our standards versus a code inspector. And plus, it's a lot different if you have someone that's never been to the house than someone that's been seeing the same house over and over again for 6 months.
Right. Well, you know in your own home that there could be something wrong, and you walk by it every day and you never notice it, and then the mother-in-law comes and visits and says, did you know you have this going on? How could you not notice that? So it's kind of the same concept.
Yeah, and we do phase inspections. So that consists of a foundation inspection, a pre-drywall, a final walkthrough, and then a 1-year home warranty inspection. And so you can do one or more of those phases depending on what you find appropriate for your situation.
So I particularly like the pre-drywall inspection.
Absolutely.
I think that's
it's your
really
only opportunity
too.
to see behind the walls.
Right, exactly. I mean, literally see
see
behind
the walls.
And I like it for you guys to come. And I also always recommend to the buyer, especially when they've got you do the pre-drywall when the plumbing and the electricals getting put in, but before the drywall. And I love that. And I encourage the buyers to take photos so then you know where the piping is in each room and should there be a problem that arises in the future. So I highly recommend that
idea.
one. The 1 year, most reputable builders are going to provide you with a 1 year time period where they come back and fix nail pops and cracks and settling and that sort of thing. Well, that's a great time to have the inspector come back and take a look to see how things are functioning. So I think that's well worth it.
It's important to know that a 1 year home warranty is really done at the 10 or 11th month mark.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of builders will write in, 30 or 60 days that they want to have that list prior to the 1 year home warranty being up. And we find some really crazy things in 1 year home warranty inspections.
Tell us. Come on, Jen, give us a good story. You have a good juicy one?
Ray's got a good one.
Probably, I have two really good ones.
We only have time for one, so pick the best.
To pick the best one. This
hands down.
Okay, so
we both know what we're talking. What we're thinking.
Stories for days. So there was a house that we were doing a 1 year warranty on, and the upstairs hall bathroom main drain pipe coming from the toilet had not been connected. So they had been living in the house for 10 or 11 months, and anyone who used the sink, the toilet, the tub, and that hall bathroom, everything was flushed into the crawl space.
Poo
for a
days.
year. For a year.
For a year.
So what happened when Ray opened that crawl space door?
It was in July.
July.
So
ooh, steamy.
It was
steamy poo.
It was a very fragrant crawl space.
So,
okay.
Needless to say, the builder was out, I think, within like 30 minutes.
Yes,
and the family was moved out within like an hour. Immediately.
She called the builder, and they were over there before I even got done with the rest of the house, and they had a company out there starting the cleanup.
I mean, it's a health concern. It's a major issue. And it's funny, people, in fact, I talked to a client yesterday, and he said, I just never thought about getting an inspection when we purchased the house. And it's the one thing that I wish I had done because, he had some leaks and some issues as the year had gone on. And, these issues, they might be small little things that some caulk could take care of, but then you let it go for a year and it becomes a much bigger issue.
Well, I think one of the biggest deterrents for buyers is they don't want to spend the money. But it's well worth. I mean,
100%.
you wouldn't think anything about dropping $1,200 on a cell phone, right? So why not spend the money on a home inspection?
And it's rare that we're not gonna find at least what the inspection cost you in repairs.
I don't think.
I mean, and then much more.
Yeah.
Well, even if you found nothing. What isn't that peace of mind?
Do we ever find nothing?
No, you don't. But even if you did,
let's
just say hypothetically,
been an inspection that we haven't ever found something that was equal to the inspection amount.
If you found nothing, just that peace of mind, knowing you can go to bed at night, not worrying about carbon monoxide in your attic or steamy poo and crap in your crawl space. I mean, these are things that we want peace of mind on, so it's well worth it.
You got a really cush job.
Yes, you do. Yeah, I don't know how they do it because guys, look, they if they can, they walk the roof. They are checking everything. They're in the garage and they go into the crawl space. I mean, I don't want to ever go in a crawl space, and I sure don't want to do it on my belly, and I don't want to do it in July, and I don't want to do it in January or the rain. Yeah,
and in the 100-degree weather.
Mm-hmm. This is not a cushy job. So let's talk about, just for a quick second, and I'm amiss. I didn't introduce. I keep looking over here at this person, and this is our producer, Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Hello. So let's talk for a second about a pre-listing inspection. So I work a lot with sellers, and this is something that we offer to our clients as a free pre-listing inspection. Can you talk a little bit about what is a pre-listing inspection and why, we always think about the buyer. The buyer needs to have an inspection, but how does this benefit a seller to consider having an inspection done before they put their house on the market?
I think it's a good idea just because you want to have your house ready to show for the first time in the best light. First impressions are everything. And having that house ready, having that first inspection, you want to make sure that everything is as good as it can possibly be. So that way you don't have any holdups, or you're not under the impression to, have to fix anything or anything like that.
And it also eliminates any issues that might come up throughout the transaction. So having a pre-listing inspection is very smart for a lot of reasons. But I think the main reason is just being prepared and knowing, there are a lot of inspection things that can kill a deal, right? And so if you know what's wrong with your house and you can make those repairs and fix those things and be aware of them, then you know that your house is ready to go on the market. And once you actually have a buyer and everything goes pending and your showings stop, that transaction is likely to go through because those repairs have been done.
So, a lot of industries, because of the market of the last 2 years, a lot of industries have really been affected, such as home warranty companies. I mean, I don't know how they're paying, those salespeople are paying the bills. But, inspection, a lot of realtors who used to do pre-listing inspections got rid of it with the market because a lot of buyers were waiving inspection or, buying as is and all that stuff. But I still wanted the pre-listing inspections done for my clients because all the stuff you're saying, but also even if the seller didn't want to do the repairs, you at least know what's wrong. You can do your legwork in contacting contractors, getting them out before you list to give you estimates. So then if a buyer should ask for that particular repair, you can hit the ground running. You already know who you're going to use and what it's going to cost you. How hard is it to get a contractor to come out and give you an estimate in 5 to 7 days?
Correct.
It's nearly impossible.
And you're limited in who you can use and how much you're going to pay.
Right. And, when you're in the passion of the inspection period, you only have 5 to 7 days as the seller to get an estimate and decide on what you want to do because you have to respond back to the buyer. You just can't get contractors to come out and do it that quickly. So pre-listing inspection, I highly recommend it. It's worth the expense, whether you're a realtor, hey, we provide it for free, but if you don't use me, that's fine. Whoever you use, talk with your listing agent about this as an option for you because I think it's really important to, sort of bulletproof your deal as you move forward in listing your property.
Absolutely.
What sort of an industry standard range of what inspections cost, and how does that cost, how's it calculated? How do you get to that cost to figure out what an inspection what you're going to charge?
Yeah, so it's all based on age and square footage essentially. Mm-hmm. Our prices start at about $350 and they go up just depending on the age and square footage. It also depends whether there's a detached structure that needs to be inspected, if we're doing radon testing, if we're doing indoor air quality testing. There's a lot of ancillary services that we can provide that can really up the price of the inspection.
Sure. And then obviously if it's new construction and you're doing the different phases, each phase has a charge. Now, these guys, if you do multiple things like that, they do give you a little bit of a discount. That's something you would want to ask your inspector. Hey, if I use you for 3 phases of the building process, are you going to give me a discount or what? So find that out. Now, again, this is pricing for the Richmond market. You'll have to check in your own market to see how it's done, but it's almost always done by age of home. Obviously, the older the home, the little more expensive it's going to be, and then square footage, which makes sense because the bigger the house, the longer you're there.
So it's finished and unfinished square footage. Mm-hmm. So if you have an unfinished basement, most people are wanting us to inspect that as well.
Yes, yeah.
So we do charge for total square footage.
Yes. Okay, great. Now, what should a buyer look for in a home inspector? Are there licenses, certifications, memberships? What are some things that you think a buyer should take into consideration?
Well, definitely if you have a state licensing in place, you definitely want to look into their state licensing. Usually the state will have some type of, DPOR, Department of Professional Occupation Regulation. You can go on and check their licensing, see if they have any complaints against them, make sure that they have an updated license. So that would be one of the first things. If you're in
licensed and insured.
Yes.
Would be a good idea, right?
Yeah, and in the state of Virginia, inspectors have to also not only have a home inspection license, but they also have to have an NRS designation, which is new residential structure. So in order to inspect new construction, you have to ensure that that inspector not only is licensed, but also has that designation on their license to be able to inspect new construction. So if you were to go on the DPOR website, you would not want to look up Capital Home Inspections. You would want to look up Ray McMurdy. So everybody is licensed individually, not the company.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So that's in the state of Virginia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are
Correct.
a lot of national home inspector organizations that have.
What do you belong to?
We belong to American Society of Home Inspectors,
ASHI.
or the NACHI, which is National Association of Certified Home Inspectors. So
There's a lot of organizations, professional organizations within the home inspection
Same
industry.
with realtors too.
I think, ASHI is one of the oldest. Everybody has a different opinion on the different professional organizations. In our area, and all of our inspectors are certified members of ASHI. So.
Now, what are your thoughts on the buyer who brings the dad who dabbles or their friend who is an electrician?
Fun. It's always a lot of fun. We love
Is that who they should rely on to do their whole house inspection?
It's definitely, the more eyes you have, the better. But I just think it's, important to have those people remember that the home inspector needs to concentrate and needs to go through the process with the home inspection, so that way they can get through it and have their, house fully looked at. And while those people can have certainly expertise and things like that, it's just important to let the person do the work. And I try to equate it to, a surgeon and a surgery. Talk to the surgeon before the surgery, after the surgery, but
not during the surgery.
Yeah, while he's cutting on you, let him concentrate a little bit more.
Makes me think of Seinfeld when Kramer's leaning over with his junior mints for the surgery. So sometimes buyers decide to save money and not have an inspector, but then to bring dad who dabbles or their contractor friend. And, just keep in mind, these guys are putting together a 30 to 50 page document complete with photos. And not only are you looking for defects, but you're there to introduce the buyer to some information as well, such as here's where you turn the water off if there's a leak, and here's this and here's that, and here's the age of this, and you might need to consider saving money. Your attempts to save money is going to cost you money because you're not going to have this report. If something breaks and you go to your insurance company, they're going to ask for your copy of your home inspection report if you've bought the house in the last year, frankly, and you're not going to have one because you brought in somebody who doesn't create what these guys create, and
and you may have some issues negotiating as well.
I was just going to say, so, here again in the Richmond market, our contract requires that you provide a written document outlining these defects and what needs to be done to fix them. So that's kind of hard to do when you bring your buddies in. And also, the other part of this is you want something to refer back to, right? Their reports are great to have and to refer back to. So, my advice is don't save money. Don't go at it. You get what you pay for. So, find somebody who provides all the photos, looks at all the systems, and has the expertise in all of the areres.
My sister recently just moved to Seattle. It was funny. You guys, everyone looked at us as soon as I said something. It was like,
What's he saying?
Recently moved to Seattle, Washington. She's in the military, and it took her very long to find a house, and they had to do the whole buying the camper and living on base, and it was a whole thing. And when they finally got the house, though, and this is not my sister bought a house early in her marriage when they lived in Columbia or South Carolina or North Carolina. So they still have that one they rented and all that. So but long story short, when they finally got the house and moved in, they found all this stuff that wasn't. And I don't know the whole logistics of like how like the buying and like what happened on her end or whatever, but like what are the questions that people need to ask? Like, because I don't think they don't know what they don't know.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? And so I mean, she's still dealing with stuff. My dad had to go over there and put a whole new flooring in, and the AC wasn't working, and had to do like there was like a list of things. He was there for 3 weeks almost doing all this stuff for them to make sure. And then the storage unit that the Army provides, third party, that got destroyed. So all of her furniture got destroyed and stuff like that. So they're living on cots and all that right now and stuff. So like when someone's going to buy a home that's not so nice, or what's the things they should, first ask on like the major,
I mean, depending on when the house was built, there's usually certain things that you want to think about. Houses built in the 60s versus the 70s versus the 80s versus the 90s. There always is kind of like a certain something that is, what you want to watch out for. Houses in the 80s and the beginning of 90s, there was polyvinyl, which you want to be careful of that. That's a certain type of pipe that was prone to, having leaks. Early, 60s, 70s, you have to watch out for things like aluminum wiring. Before that, knob and tube wiring.
Yep.
There's certain things, depending on the age of the house, you want to watch out for. If they've, made additions or finished off certain places or renovated.
So that's a great point. So a lot of people, again, to save money, and they feel they have the interest or the expertise, they finish their own basement, they finish their third floor, and they don't get permits. Can you talk about that real quick for a second?
Yeah,
Sorry
absolutely.
to interrupt you, but that was a good...
Absolutely.
Good
Definitely
segue.
Good
Yep,
segue.
very good.
So people do finish stuff themselves and build things themselves, and you're supposed to have someone come out there to check to make sure they were done to current building standards and have the code official come out there, which means pulling permits and then having them come check those things. Not everyone does that, of course, and maybe they know what they're doing, maybe they don't know. There's lots of times that we find things that they shouldn't have done a certain way. So by checking permits, it's just kind of another extra step or layer that you can do after the fact when you're looking at a house to kind of, give you more information.
Yeah, so let me just paint the picture for you. You've done this, you finished something yourself, and you didn't go through the permit route, and you put your house on the market, and I represent the buyer. Guess what? These guys are going to come do the inspection. He's going to notice that something has been updated or finished, and he might see a couple things that are questionable, maybe not up to current code, and what he's going to put in the report is check to see if the permitting process was done properly. So then we're going to check that and find out, hey, seller, you never permitted. So now you're going to have to do a retroactive permit process, which is a little bit more expensive than if you'd done it right in the first place.
And you may have things to correct.
Yes, probably will, because that's what he's going to pick
And
up
sometimes
on. So.
you have to deconstruct what you made to correct those things, which
Yes,
is even more
ouch.
expensive.
Ouch. And do you think the buyer's going to allow you to be the one to fix it when you didn't do it right in the first? And so now you got to hire somebody.
And
it
you've
prolongs-
lost trust in the process, you
Yes.
know.
And the process
What else are they
happening
hiding?
Correct.
prolongs everything. It makes the stressful process even more stressful.
Yeah. All right. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just curious, but we're at the
Yep. So one thing that I do want to mention is that, again, the whole insurance idea. You want to make sure that your inspector is insured because, again, representing a lot of sellers, it is not uncommon for an inspector sometimes to break something. The number one thing I see is shades or blinds in our listings where the inspector didn't know how to raise the blind properly and they end up breaking the blinds. So, it's really important to have somebody
Or the
reputable.
blinds were broken before we got there, and then we touched them, and they fall apart.
That never happens. No. So, it's important to have somebody reputable. Here in the
Yes.
Richmond market, I highly recommend Capital Home Inspections. Give yourself a quick plug. Go on, Jen. Go for it.
I mean, we really strive to wow every client that we work with, and every realtor that we work with. And we're all about building those relationships. So we would love the opportunity to earn anybody's business and let them see what kind of service we have to offer.
How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah.
They can go to our website, which is richmondinspector.com, or they can call our office.
What's that number?
We're on all socials, 804-639-1171.
Say it again.
804-639-1171.
It'll be in the show notes if you missed that. And just so you guys know, this is a husband and a wife owning a business together. So they've actually been gracious enough to stay with us. So we're going to be doing another episode about
Part 2.
part 2. Yes, episode number 3.
3A.
3A. Well, this one's number 2.
2A and
so I guess 2B
to be.
or something. Yeah.
We can get really technical.
To be or not to be.
2.2.
Yeah, 2.0. So they're going to be staying with us. So tune in for our next episode. And what we're going to dive into is owning a business together with your partner and what that's going to be like.
Dum,
and,
dum, dum.
Yeah, and some tips about that.
This will be a good one.
Yes. And but before we go, I always have some questions that I like to ask you. So my first question is, what is your favorite book, real estate book or business book that you've read recently? And again, this will be in the show notes. So
Mine is Atomic Habits, hands down. Like, I love that book. I think it's got a lot to offer. We actually offer a workshop on Atomic Habits as well. So it's something that I really
by
am
James
passionate
Clear,
about.
right?
Yes, by James Clear. Yep.
Excellent book. And if you tuned into episode 1, you'll know that I talked about that book as well. So, yes,
Great
very
minds.
good. Yes, great minds. Do you want to share a book?
Probably one of the books that I've read most recently that I really enjoyed was Tribe of Millionaires. And so it's kind of a business book / story, nothing really to do with real estate, but it changed my perspective and kind of the way that I thought about things.
So say that title again.
A Tribe of Millionaires.
A Tribe of Million. I want to be in that tribe.
I want to be in the tribe too.
Michael, you want to be in that tribe?
We all want to be in
I
the
was going for
tribe.
billions, but I'll go with millions.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm okay with millionaire. I don't want to be greedy, right? Tell us what your favorite podcast is that you like to listen
I
to.
love podcasts. This is going to be one of my favorite podcasts too.
Oh, thank you.
My favorite my favorite murder is like my favorite entertaining. Like, I love listening to that as I'm just driving around. It's really good. And then I love Glennon Doyle's We Can Do Hard Things. I think that's just a great self-help type podcast. Yeah, those are my favorite.
What's your favorite?
I listen to several kind of home inspector podcasts, which probably aren't necessarily on the most exciting ones to listen to, but one of the more, I'd say, popular ones I listen to is Deeper Pockets. It's kind of like a real estate investment.
Is it Deeper Pockets or Bigger Pockets? Which one do you listen to?
I've listened to both, but I'm trying to...
I think it's Deeper Pockets.
Yeah, I love Bigger Pockets. That
Maybe
one's
it's
my
Bigger
favorite.
Bigger Pockets. Who knows?
It's all about
It's
investing.
something pockets.
About investments.
Bigger
investments,
Pockets.
yeah.
That's my favorite.
I always
by
just
far.
kind of like click on my phone when I'm in the car, so I'm not like, I'm driving, so I'm not really paying attention.
Yeah,
to
Bigger
the-
Pockets has been around for about 8 years. I mean, it was one of the first podcasts
Yeah.
ever,
Yeah.
and it's absolutely incredible. So.
I also love Entrepreneurs on Fire. That's another one
Yeah.
that I love.
And I love Stay Wealthy.
Oh, I haven't listened to that one.
Yeah. Oh, you need to listen to his latest
Stay
because he's
Wealthy.
giving some
Okay.
advice on if you own real estate, which I think you guys do
Yes.
own some properties, and if you own a business, he talks. He has a
Okay.
3-part series about tax stuff. So
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, we'll have to check that out.
Yes, I love Stay Wealthy. All right, and my last question for you guys is what now? I'll give a little plug for them. I've already mentioned they're definitely my preferred inspection vendor, and one of the reasons why is because I adore you and you do great work, but also you really have rolled up your sleeves and invested in the local community. They do a lot with nonprofits. So can you, and I love that. So can you share with us your favorite nonprofits that you like to support?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess coming off the heels of October, We donate to Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation. That is a foundation near and dear to our heart. And then we also do a lot of work with Rock Solid Foundation, which is a foundation that works with pediatric cancer patients.
Kind of a local Eastern Virginia.
Yeah, they started in Virginia Beach, and they essentially build swing sets for kids with cancer, and it's just a really, really, really wonderful organization.
And I can speak to that because I have volunteered on at least three of Rock Solid's projects, and it's amazing to get a group. You can do this with your company, your business, get a group of employees together, and you spend a day, and not even a full day. It's not even a full day. You'll get most of it done by lunchtime. You get a sponsor to bring in the lunch, which these guys are one of the sponsors for us when we do that project. And you literally build a really nice play set for some sweet little baby who's got the challenge of cancer that they're facing.
And they're unable to go to public playgrounds
because of their immune
system.
Immune system.
And it's really just great for the whole family. It gives the parents just an opportunity for their kids to go outside and play, and for them to see them play.
A happy reason, right?
Yes.
Instead of a doctor's appointment to be able to do that. Yeah,
they pick them up in the morning, usually in a limo. Take them to some fun activity.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then when they come
take
back,
the whole family,
have,
to IHOP, and then they go to the zoo, and
that's awesome.
then they come back to this big reveal.
Nice big reveal with the swing set
balloon and the
lunch and
whatever the group was that put it together. They're all there cheering, and
the group all signs the swing set with inspirational messages to the kids. So as they're playing and growing up, they can see that.
Yep.
So many people care about them.
Yeah. And it's always a good time to support breast cancer awareness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or breast cancer in general. It's always a good time to send some money that direction. Well, thank you so much. And again, next episode, we're going to be talking about business. We really appreciate you tuning in to Talk Pretty Real Estate podcast. If you are so inclined, we would love for you to leave a review and come back and listen again. Thank you, Michael, as always, for your help.
Thank you.
And make it a great day. Go do good things.
You've just been listening to Talk Pretty with host Beth Pretty. If you have questions or would like to suggest a topic for an upcoming episode, reach out to Beth on Instagram or Facebook at Pretty Properties VA. For more information about Beth and her team, visit prettypropertiesva.com. The Talk Pretty Real Estate podcast is a production of Studio 77. Visit rvastudio77.com for more information.